Okay, that was the iPhone launch. That was in London. A lot of people got those iPhones. In fact, 5 million iPhone 5s have been sold. But it disappointed some people. We'll tell you all about that right here, right now on Digits. Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Simon Constable. And to tell us all about this, we have the one and only Dan Gallagher joining us now from San Francisco, where he's with MarketWatch. Dan, happy Monday to you.
How you doing?
Excellent. Better for seeing you. 5 million phones in basically a weekend, a long weekend if you like, including Friday, is a lot of phones.
It is, and it's the highest they've shipped on an opening weekend for the iPhone. So a lot of high numbers there. But I think what we're starting to see now with Apple and the iPhone is that estimates start to get really high. And there was a lot of analysts that were projecting somewhere between 6 and 8 million units on the opening weekend. And those numbers were floating around Thursday and Friday as the phone launched. And so when they came out with a 5 million number in the press release this morning, I think some took that as a disappointment.
Well, there's a little bit of a nuance here, though, isn't there? Because not all of the sales count as sales, do they? If I'm having one shipped to me, that doesn't count as a sale until I get it.
That's right. In fact, if you, for the people that tried to do pre-orders on the first day, a lot of those people are not getting their phones until October because their initial run of the pre-orders sold out really quickly. And so if you're not getting your phone until October, my understanding is Apple cannot book that as a sale until you've actually got the phone and signed for it. So there's likely some number of phones within that number just alone that probably would have added to it, then possibly some other things. And there's a lot of things that people don't really know right now. Were they supply constrained because of shortages of certain components? Are more people ordering online than staying in line in the stores? It's really hard to tell all that from the data that we have right now.
Undoubtedly, though, this is a lot of phones sold, and Apple should be feeling pretty good about it, right?
Well, I think they probably feel fine. For investors, I think the real telling thing is not so much what happens in the opening weekend, but what happens over the next few weeks, and more importantly, over the December quarter, the next 2 quarters. iPhone sales tend to pack them in the first 2 quarters of launch. So I think the real key number is what we're going to see how many Apple sells, especially in the December quarter and the last 2 weeks of this one, to the extent that we can get any sense of it.
Now, do you think any of this has to do with the mapping function? We talked about this last week. The mapping function is not really up to snuff because it really doesn't have the things where they should be on the map, which is sort of basic for a map. A lot of people have talked about that. I would think that would make very little difference to sales. That's just my view.
That is really hard to determine from a quantifiable standpoint. For people who absolutely need the mapping function to be the best it can be in a smartphone, it's possible some of those decided to hold off and see what would happen, or maybe go to another phone. But you really can't tell that these kind of numbers. You'd have to go and find people in line, or find people that were going to get an iPhone 5 and decided not to because they were concerned about that. Like I said, I think we'll really tell over time to see how it sells over time. And if over time those sales end up disappointing, it's possible that the mapping issue might be a part of that. But it's really hard to know that this early on.
And they are getting very good. It's a completely night and day from what it was a few years ago when you used to have the dropped calls. Now, I'm hearing that some of the high numbers were up to 8 million expectations of sales, which seems an enormous number. Are those analysts feeling silly now?
I can't speak to how they're feeling, but several have put out notes trying to explain where they think they might have come up with a shortfall. And that's where we're seeing some explanations of, well, it could have been pre-orders that weren't recognized as sales yet. Possibly some component supply issues. So it's, they're making their guesses as well. So it's really, they're trying to make an explanation for why they might have been a little high. But at this point, this early in the game, a lot of it really is guesswork, and it's going to take some time to see how the iPhone 5 really sells.
Now, I understand the stock is down about 2% right now, which doesn't seem to be a huge amount. 2.06%, still approaching $700 a share, which is, hardly, hardly anything to sniff at, is it?
No, and Apple's up more than 70% for the year-to-date still, even with today's drop-off. So, and a lot of that has become is a part of speculation about the iPhone 5 and what a big product it was going to be. So I don't think to date what we're seeing today is really a massive sell-off or a huge reaction. I think it's investors that were probably playing on the momentum and adding to it a little bit. I think it's going to take some time to see how well it plays out for the stock.
Well, we shall see. Thank you very much. Always a pleasure. Dan Gallagher of Market Watch. You can read more of Dan's story online.